In the time of crisis, a customer's interaction with a company can trigger an immediate and lingering effect on his or her sense of trust and loyalty. As millions are furloughed and retreat into isolation, a primary barometer of their customer experience will be how the businesses they frequent and depend upon deliver experiences and services that meet their new need with empathy, care, and concern. To elaborate this further, we have a session on growing your business in uncertain times, differentiating with CX by Mr. KT Prasad, MD and RVP, India and SARC, Zendesk.
Hello, hope you and your family are doing well. I would like to talk to you today about growing a business in uncertain times, especially differentiated with CX. My name is KT Prasad. I'm Managing Director and RVP for Zendesk in India and SARC. Year 2020 and 2021 had changed everything. It changed how businesses really function. It impacted a lot of industries quite dramatically. It impacted some businesses, exponential growth. It changed the customer behaviors. It changed everything. But I think there's a silver lining in e-commerce because most of us have resorted to e-commerce as a way of getting our key things done in the last 18 months or so. Now, what that means is about 10x projected growth for e-com, from in India from 2019 to 2030, and especially in the last 18 months, the 10x growth has delivered in the last 18 months. And all those new customers that e-com industries acquired, they expect to spend 160% more in the future. 37% consumers are still uncomfortable visiting non-essential services. That means there's a great opportunity for e-com industry. Now, your company's success and every other company's success usually depends on the way you deliver CX to your consumers and customers. Now, I say this, and I think strongly, in the last 18 months or so, there is a new era that has come into the market. I think one thing for sure that you heard from others, and I will also hear from me, that customer expectations are changing and changing faster. And this last 18 months or so, they've changed faster. But another thing, there is arrival of experience economy. That means the core difference between you and your nearest competition is by how you deliver CX versus anything else. Don't believe my word for it. Take a look at some of the leading brands in the market. These are the leading brands that talk about differentiated CX and customer service as a key differentiator for the consumers. But 95% of retail leaders report making changes to CS and customer service is challenging. And why is that so? We'll take a look at that in shortly. But before that, I talked about customer expectation changing faster, and one of the customer expectation changing faster that we've seen in India, I think India is leading global shift towards messaging. Now, in the last 18 months or so, including me, I think it happened to me and it will happen to you and everybody else. In the uncertain times, we always relied on to a channel of communication to your friends and family like WhatsApp is what we prefer to use it to our customers too. So I think there's an era of social messaging, embedded messaging, and you talk about overall messaging as overall, like including bots and everything has really come. And India is leading the pack across the globe. Now, apart from customer expectations that you've seen just now messaging, I think there is a need for all the businesses to stay relevant. And if you want to stay relevant, you need to be agile. Now, what is agility? Now, let me break it down into 3 areas. Agility is something that you have a speed to reaction and action, flexibility in a process and how you approach things, and are you embracing the change that has been thrown at you broadly? Now, let me take you down into furthermore. And before we do, I think agility is like a muscle that we build. Now, I'll take a personal example. Before pandemic, I used to get up early in the morning, go out, either for a run or maybe to go to gym and work out, come back and do my, regular routine. But being in the last 18 months and where it not very comfortable to step out, I've stopped going to gym. So I've developed a muscle of working from home, working out from home. Like you get up in the morning, you figure out a schedule, you may go for a run. If you can't go out for a run because it's probably not safe, probably you switch on the most available gadgets to you and then start working out. I think you got to develop this muscle, and agility and being agile is like developing a muscle for ourselves. Now, why is agility important and why is it worth? Now, let me give you a quick stats. 53% of customers say that they need to repeat themselves over half of the time. Now, that's a massive 53%. And 54% find long wait and hold times are most frustrating. Come on, this is not new to any one of us, and all of us know if customers are made to wait in the queue for longer to get their queries answered, you drive frustration very clearly. 64% want to self-service, but guess what? Their self-service needs are not always met. So you have a customer who's willing to do a self-service, and we know that the cost per self-service is so low as compared to live channels, but still they're not able to get what they need. Now, if you look at McKinsey report on enterprise agility, the agility being agile, you can achieve 50% improvement in operational performance and 50% improvement in the bottom line. Talk to your CFO about this and being agile, what it means, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of love and support. But not just that, I think it'll also improve customer satisfaction by 30%. You will also have very engaged employee. That means you will drive employee engagement by 30 points. That's humongous. And I'm sure all of us want to be agile, in the days to come. Now, if you want to focus on agility, there are key areas that you want to focus. Number one, making it easier to hear what customers are saying. It's very important to understand what customers are talking about you and what they want and what they expect out of you. And then, you design teams to stay productive. We talked about number two, we'll talk about it shortly. And third, of course, invest in technology, and I'll break it down, each one of that for you. Now let's go into number one, making it easy to hear what customers are saying. Now, what we recommend in this, number one, build your customer experience plans with feedback and analytics. That means you got to be constantly a way to hear from customers, understand what's really working out for them. If they're expecting messaging, like you saw me presenting, humongous 60% of Indians wanted to deal with businesses about messaging. Do you provide that channel of communication to customers? If you have a constant way of communication and taking feedback from customers, you would have heard that. Second, integrate your CX data and break down silos. And it's very important, especially in the last 18 months. One thing is very clearly is given us, we got to break down marketing team and sales team and post-sales and pre-sales and all of that, and make sure that everybody works with one single set of data, so that when any one customer facing teams, it doesn't mean that only customer support teams are only ones who interact. It could be marketing team, it could be sales team. Are you really bringing everything together to talk to and engage your customers? Third, unify the customer view. It's very, very fundamental for delivering great CX. All the customer data, customer profile, your telephone is integrated, your order management integrated, your logistics is integrated, probably ERP is integrated, anything else to make that customer conversation better. Unify all of that to deliver a great CX. Now, let me just show you and roll on a quick audio just to give you a flavor.
Customer relationships are complicated. It's not just I buy, you sell, the end. They're much more than that. Made up of fragmented pieces of what you know about your customers, disconnected back-end systems that don't even talk to each other, and we're all constantly adapting to new channels. It's kind of all over the place. And that's cool. Because what seems like chaos is actually everything you want. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet of possibilities, potential opportunities, insights, indicators of what should come next for your business. To take advantage of it, all you need is a little imagination and daring do. Right? Well, Sort of. You also need technology that lets you put your data to use and actually build things that work for your business and your customers. That's why Zendesk created Sunshine, a new kind of customer relationship platform that adapts to your needs and your imagination. It's native to AWS, it's based on open source standards, and since proprietary languages and middleware just lock you in, we didn't use them. Sunshine is kind of an unplatform that lets you reach your data, connect it, and use it to build the next generation of customer experience.
Remember, being agile doesn't mean that changing everything all the time. It is about being ready to embrace a change. Remember, that is very, very important. It's not about changing all the time, but whenever a change is warranted, you're right up there to change that. Now I'll go to next pillar of increasing on areas of agility. Designing your teams to stay productive through change is very, very important. And what do we recommend in there? And I believe that all of us and CX leaders can make this happen. Now, let me give you an example. One, driving collaboration and knowledge sharing is super important in this, I would say, digital first virtual everyday world. That means, I assume, and it's probably true, that for some time in the next, days to come and the weeks or months to come, there are some agents probably working remote, some agents really continues to work from operate from office space. But you got to drive a way of driving collaboration and knowledge sharing across all of them. Now, what this means that, you got to really put, how do you drive collaboration? Earlier we used to tap, the agent used to tap the right, shoulder of the guy who's sitting right next to them and ask for, how do I do this? And, and get everybody together to solve a problem. But today it's very different, because you have people distributed across, at different locations. Now, think about how do you drive collaboration and sharing the same knowledge. Second, drive automation and workflows. I got to identify what makes sense to automate. And it's very simple. There are things like rudimentary task about if one of your agent is working on answering queries like, give me your support operations, or maybe where is my order, things of the nature. Those are very rudimentary, and I'm sure you could automate them and create a workflow so that maybe wherever there is required, you bring in a subject matter expertise, or maybe bring in a manager, or bring in a finance team or logistic team, bring everybody together to solve that problem of a customer. And you design your teams to support through the changes. And very importantly, last one, you got to leverage AI and machine learning tools. And maybe it means we got to be able to put a bot to answer some rudimentary tasks, and it can drive some automation. And wherever the automation on the bot is not able to help solve a customer problem, are you able to hand out to the support agent to help solve that customer query so that the customer doesn't need to repeat themselves, and there's a continuity of conversation that the customer has started. Now, high-performing companies across the world have added close to 2.2x of more help center articles than past year. Just giving you a simple flavor and how high-performing companies are thinking about driving self-service. Now, remember, effort is not equal to work. You got to really identify the rudimentary tasks, automate them, identify the areas that you need collaboration. And remember, if you have to bring in a Slack or a Zoom integration, things of the nature to drive collaboration, please do that. Or even Microsoft Teams collaboration. So drive collaboration, bring in knowledge sharing. Everybody should be able to contribute to knowledge, identify areas to automate, and then leverage AI and technology for you. And the third pillar today I want to talk about is invest in technology that supports your CX goals. In the last 18 months, everybody knows that the IT budgets and CX budgets have rapidly grew because it is a way businesses felt to engage customers. It is a way that you saw, earlier of my conversation today, that businesses are differentiating with customer experience, and invest in technology that supports your CA goals. That doesn't mean that you got to change your technology every time. And you think about, you bought a treadmill maybe 3-4 years ago to run at home, and maybe a new treadmill that has come in today. Would you go back and change the treadmill, buy a new one? Probably that's easier than said, right? But in technology, investments are not like that. You got to choose a technology that works for everybody, and you should be able to have and drive the changes quickly. Now, I talked about adding a bot, and I'm sure in the last 18 months, the number of companies have put in an AI-powered bot or any kind of automation. Does your CX platform and technology allows you to do that? Think about that. And then you got to have that flavor when you want to invest in a technology. Make sure that you drive those. Number two, make sure that you select a set of technology that integrates with apps and partners. And we talked about driving collaboration. And it could be a simple Slack conversation that you want to bring in on a solving customer query. Does your technology helps integrate with collaboration tools that I just talked about, like a Zoom or Microsoft Teams, or so on and so forth? And does it have a partner ecosystem to help solve? Maybe you want to bring in a task management, you want to bring in a project management, things of the nature. Does the technology gives you all the tools and technology, if not by themselves, does it have a partner ecosystem that help you drive that? Now, simple last pro tip that from me, simple setup is doesn't mean that no setups. So you got to spend time setting up simple configurations, power up quickly. You want to make sure that you buy a software that is ready to go from the day one. Should be able to configure them, should be able to quickly customize for based on your organization need and get going quickly. And as a next, what's next? And I've showed you some data today, and I'm more than happy for you to go ahead and download these reports on Zendesk.com or from our website. And if you want to bring in more statistics and playbooks, all that content is available on our website. And if you want to know what's new with Zendesk, just join us in one of the upcoming webinar, and where we will talk you through being in a CX leader. We will talk about what's coming up new from Zendesk. With that, I want to thank you all for patient listening. I wish you a great one and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prasad, for sharing your knowledge and experience with our audience. Now we'll proceed to the next session. Stay tuned.